About last night, Burks and CJ Miles, the 211 draft class. Why tonight matters. It's all coming up on tip off. NIT champs, NIT champs, NIT champs, NIT champs, NIT champs. Woo! All right, so Stanford won the NIT. Am I allowed to be excited about that? Like, what's the rule on that? Am I? I didn't watch, so I think I'm not allowed to be excited. That's kind of my rule. I invested no time other than scoreboard watching into the event. Therefore, I probably am not allowed to be excited that Stanford won the NIT. Does winning the NIT prove you should have got a NCAA bid? Yes, because I don't think the bottom 20, 10, 12 teams that got in the NCAA could go win the NIT. Did we have a resume that was worthy of an NCAA bid? No, so that really loses that argument. All right, about last night, uh, I have a really important question for everybody. I was dying to stay awake and see Tracy Morgan on Letterman, and I couldn't do it. And I fell asleep, and I couldn't do it. Did anyone see it? And was it any good? That's what about last night was about. Plus what happened in the NBA a little bit. But did anybody see it? So let me know if it was any good. Uh, about last night in the NBA, Miami crushes Dallas and Oklahoma City crushes the Lakers. And you're trying to figure out, is there any value in that? Um, and I'm not sure I have an answer. This whole season just seems completely whacked. Uh, and I'm having a hard time in what takeaways you can take. It just because you have to go so much deeper in every single game than just all right. What happened tonight? Like how many more games have they played? How many games they played on the road? How many travel days? The only thing that's going on that I think is kind of curious on Dallas's sense, and I've been kind of the one sitting back saying Dallas will keep coming, is they have lost 4 games by 20 plus. Um, Orlando fits in this too, by the way. Orlando has lost by 5 by 20 plus. That, excuse me, wow, that's a nice way to start off tip off. That leads me to believe that there's kind of something fundamentally wrong with those teams. Um, I think so. And when I say wrong, I mean as in title contenders. Uh, it's funny on the West. I just keep dropping teams off the list to who I think is a title contender. The Lakers certainly don't look like one. Uh, Dallas goes off that list. Memphis, I'm not willing to go that far with. So you kind of end up with Oklahoma City, and then you have to decide whether you believe in San Antonio or not. And that's about it. And then the only thing on Miami, I would just say, Miami is 21-2 at home. They're not going to catch Chicago, but no one's beating them before Chicago, and no one's beating Chicago. So the East is kind of wait till the Eastern Conference Finals. I had a very interesting conversation yesterday with a good friend of mine who, if he's listening right now, will laugh because he just became a part of Tip Off, about Alec Burks. And he's a guy that's somewhat in the know, so he's, I think, reluctant to fall. Like, I don't want to fall into the trap of everybody else. But he's like, shouldn't Alec Burks be playing a lot more than C.J. Miles? And we had a conversation I want to share, and my feeling on it is that I think most people feel this way, that Alec Burks should be playing more than C.J. Miles. And I would probably agree. Alec Burks, to me, is a better basketball player than C.J. Miles, which is what would lead you to make that decision. Now, there's some areas where CJ's done some things pretty well recently, and he's been respectable on the defensive end, whereas Alec the other night had to get switched off Gerald Green, which makes things a little different when you start to analyze this. The other thing that I pointed out, if you simply isolate Alec Burks at this point of his career. There's some level where having him play, 19, 18, 24 minutes rather than 33, really, regardless of who's playing for him. Now, that's where this gets complicated. Might be the right thing. And here's my thought. Against Boston, he played 19 minutes. The defense caused him a lot of problems. He was 2 of 7. He did get to the free throw lines. I mean, he gets the free throw line at a terrific rate. And he plays 19 minutes. You know what? If he plays 32 minutes that night, like a lot of us would probably like him to, you know what? He might end up 3 of 14. And now, and against Atlanta, he was having a hard time with some of the athleticism in that game. And he goes 3 of 9. And he played 21 minutes. And if he plays 30 in that night, he might end up 4 of 15. And against Oklahoma City, he played 24 minutes and went 1 of 6. And again, if you stretch that out, and I don't really care if he does those, except for then you're starting to play with the mental psyche a little bit. Right? So, I mean, like Oklahoma City, Sacramento, back-to-back nights, he was suddenly 4 of 16 over a 2-night period of time. And he had a nice night against Denver. He went 6 for 10, so suddenly you don't worry about it. On the last road trip, he has the nice night against the lesser team in New Jersey. And so he ends up on that road trip 10 of 27 shooting. That's pretty poor. What I think is Ty's doing a nice job with, first of all, he's playing mostly against second-tier guys right now. And the third thing, he's avoiding those nights. He's avoiding those nights of 3 of 15, where if you extend his minutes, there's a really reasonable case to be made that he would do that. I mean, if you look at his 2 nights against Oklahoma City this year, he goes 4 of 15. Now, he's going to be fine unless you overdip the Oreo cookie. For those who don't know the Oreo cookie story, the analogy that I made earlier in the year with all these young guys is they're really talented. Okay, so it's an Oreo. One of my favorite cookies is an Oreo cookie, and if you just dip it a tiny bit and pull it back out really quickly, it's nothing different than an Oreo cookie. It's just got a little milk on it. If you dip it too much into the Oreo cookie, it kind of crumbles, and then it's kind of a waste, and you've lost all the talent that is the Oreo cookie. But if you dip it just right, there's nothing better than an Oreo cookie and milk. So with Alec Burks, I do feel like we're doing a really nice job, as much as it's frustrating to see CJ Miles on the floor at times, because Ty, and I have nothing to do with this. I would have screwed it up. They're avoiding having the nights where he suddenly comes to the gym the next day feeling like he went 3 of 14 and follows it with another poor night. I mean, let's go recently, right, where he's been playing a lot, and he certainly helps the club. But though, truly, he's probably got the least good plus-minus on the team during the period, which is fine. But if you take that Oklahoma City game where he played 24 minutes and he went 1 of 6, and you stretch it out, and he suddenly played 30, and so he goes 2 of 10. And the next night against Sacramento, he was 3 of 10, and you stretch it out to 30-plus minutes, and he goes 4 of 15. He's now walking in the next night against Denver, and maybe he's a little hesitant. Maybe he's wondering about a shot. Maybe he's questioning himself. And he's such a confident kid that right now you're avoiding that with him. And I think this is the right way to play him in his rookie year with just 2 years of college at 20 years old. The unfortunate thing, and maybe the right way in doing this is in protecting him, is that it does mean that C.J. Miles is getting more time, and C.J.'s doing a better job defensively, but he's still C.J. Miles with his weaknesses. The other thing I think that's worth remembering, if anybody's read Outliers on Alec Burks, is the birthday game. So Alec, parentheses S, was born July 20th. And if you've read outliers, he talks a lot about how we pick all of our talent by kids that are born in January, February, March, and we actually don't recognize talent, we recognize age. And I think that's a lot of what happened with Alec, of why he was overlooked probably a lot in his career, is that birthday game. If you start to, he was a pretty young kid for his class. He's not a kid who was held back. He's only 20 years old. He finished 2 years of college, and he hasn't turned 21 yet. I mean, this should be his junior year. He'll be turning 21 the summer before his senior year of college. That's a young kid. So there's still lots of development that's taking place here with him, and it's all upsides and looks fabulous. I'm excited about it. But I think that's worth just taking a moment. You can disagree with that. That was just an opinion. Speaking of Alec, we have two of the rookies coming in tonight in Isaiah Thomas and Jimmer Fredette. And you wonder if you were to redo the draft class today, how different it would be. Kyrie Irving is still certainly the number one pick. But Isaiah Thomas, point guard for Sacramento, if you look at win shares, has had the fifth best season of any rookie in the draft. He has been played the seventh most minutes. He's been really good. Irving shooting 47%. He's not a different class, but little Isaiah Thomas is shooting 44% from the field and 36% from three. This is far better than Kemba Walker. And Thomas is frankly not that much smaller than Kemba Walker. It's far better than Brandon Knight, who I really, was a kid I really liked in this draft. Who's playing for Detroit. Knight's played an awful lot this year. I can't seem to find him on my draft board right now, but he has played a lot of minutes this year and gotten a lot of time. And for some reason, he's not showing up on my list right now. His shooting percentage is low. It's really quite interesting. Kawhi Walker, you'd have to move. Kawhi Leonard, excuse me, you'd have to move pretty high up on that board of. He was 15th. He actually has the highest win share of anybody in the draft class. Chandler Parsons, a late second-round pick. You'd have to move on up. Kenneth Fareed, Morehead State. Now, those are 4-year players. A lot of these 3- and 4-year players have played very well without the training camp and a lot of things of that nature. But it's a pretty interesting exercise. It's too early to do it. But Kyrie Irving goes 1. I'm not sure Derek Williams still goes 2, and I think everyone knows I've never been particularly high on him, but I just don't know what position he plays at all. And then Ennis probably holds in that third spot. Time will tell on him. What an interesting story yesterday if you didn't read that at Locked On Jazz. And I don't know who starts to go. Brandon Knight, by the way, is shooting 40% from the field and 37% from three. And I evidently am having allergies for the first time all year. Well, it's going to be 80 degrees coming up on Saturday. We won't be here, but that's crazy. So anyway, I just think it's a really interesting exercise of kind of looking back at this draft. It also gets us to Jimmer, and we'll see what happens with him. Now, he's just not playing. I mean, he's and I would say just looking over his numbers last night preparing for the broadcast, he does look as though he's changed the way he's playing, like he's jacking it. Like he's figured out, all right, they're not playing me. I'm coming into games, and I am shooting. Because he's playing 7 minutes a night, taking 4 shot attempts. And he's not playing second halves of games. It's too bad. It's a tough situation. But if you go back and just how much his world has changed from where he was when he came to Utah earlier this year. If you look back, the previous games Jimmer he played 27, 20, 23, 16. He had a 7-minute night. We began to worry, remember. Then 33, 21, 37, and 30 against Utah. Since then, he's had 2 nights the whole year over 20 minutes, maybe 3. And, frankly, in those games, he produces all right. He was 2 of 5 against the Knicks, 5 of 10 against the Hornets, 5 of 9 against Atlanta. And you wonder, is that just because the coach is doing a nice job of giving him a chance in those games? Or what is it? But if you look back, if you look at Jimmer here in his last 5 or 6 games, 11 shots in 20 minutes, 1 shot in 5 minutes, 6 shots in 8 minutes, 1 shot in 4 minutes, 4 shots in 7 minutes. He has definitely reverted back to letting it rip. It's just not clicking. And we've talked. I don't need to bore. If anyone's interested, I can go back through my Jimmer analysis. But I am, as I've said, a bit concerned on where he's heading, how much improvement he'll actually have in his career, just because of the age he is at, and where he is coming up. And I don't actually believe the line of thought that he's in a bad situation. Isaiah Thomas is doing just fine in that situation. Jimmer's problem is really a lacking of position. Tonight's huge. I've talked about this a lot. Road wins minus home losses is the issue. And the Jazz are at +2, and they've got to maintain that. Boogie Cousins, the freak that is, so skilled but yet so immature on the floor, is averaging 27 points and 13 rebounds over his last 5 games. I would still take Derek Favors over him immediately. Sacramento comes in having lost 4 in a row. It is really actually important that they keep losing for the Jazz in the draft pick with the Warriors. They're 3.5 games behind the Warriors, and we need to keep that as the Warriors continue to fade. The Jazz are +2 on road wins minus home losses. The teams we're competing with, Houston is +1, Denver is even, Phoenix is on the wrong side as a negative. Memphis is at 3 and Dallas is at 2. That's the key. You look at the Jazz rest of the way. If they can avoid home losses in front of the Rockets' home crowd, they're fine. Every time they lose a game at home, they've got to win another road game. And the winnable road games are few, unless any road game the Jazz get, probably one in Portland and one in New Orleans. Other than that, they're really stealing them. And so the question is, home against Phoenix, home against Golden State, home against San Antonio, home against Dallas, home against Orlando, home against Phoenix, and home against Portland to close out the year. How many of those can the Jazz get? And tonight against Sacramento seems like a silly one, but just the schedule we have, it's not clear when it's going to catch us and when this team is going to come out in a little bit of a funk at some point. And fair enough if they do. Big news also, Grant Hill may be out for the year. All right, that's tip-off. I'm going to go get the kids. I had a wonderful day yesterday golfing with them. I took them out of school at noon, and we went and spent some time together. Had a nice time. Then I went to maturation class with my son. So glad I could be home for that event. All right, hope everybody's well. NIT. Yeah, I can't really do that. All right, talk to you guys later. See ya.